lead. Oh, you're in already, so that's fine. There we go. And we're about 30 seconds away. There we go. 7, 6, 5. Well, hello everybody, and welcome to yet another edition of the InWorld Review, where it's already, believe it or not, the 26th of January, 2014. Yes, got the century right for once, didn't I? Good old me. Right, well, this has been an interesting week. It has been a relatively quiet week, as this time of year generally is. But just before the weekend began, we got some rather major news concerning the metaverse. A recent addition to what can be broadly described as the metaverse, a platform called Cloud Party, which originally started off as a embedded virtual world in Facebook and then sort of opened up with its own viewer, has announced that it will be closing down in February, which is just a few short weeks away. Well, it's a few short days, but I don't believe they're going to close down bang on the 1st of February. In fact, some of the breaking news on this was a bit misleading because what's actually happened is that Yahoo have bought Cloud Party. And in fact, it is Yahoo that will be closing it down, having bought it. It will remain a mystery for the time being exactly why they bought it and what they intend to do with it. Some people suggest they are after the programmers and the team behind it and don't really want Cloud Party at all. Alternatively, they may just want to give it a new name and rebirth it as part of Yahoo's ongoing portal recovery operation, shall I call it. We will actually see. But hot on that came news that the current CEO of Linden Labs, which run the Second Life platform, which of course is where we're broadcasting from, has actually departed. He has already departed the lab as CEO, and he's taken a pal of his, crumbs, Will. I was going to say Will Burns. Totally the wrong. Will. Help me, Tara. Who's the Will I'm thinking of? Never mind. Right.
Will Wright
Will Wright
is the one you're thinking of. Yes.
Okay. Sorry, folks. This is what happens when you've got an absent-minded host on the show.
We won't talk about it. No. It has something to do with maturity, shall we say?
Okay, fair enough. Anyway, Will Wright, who's been for some time a member of Linden Labs board of directors, has also left the board of directors. And Will Wright came in about 2 years ago when Roderick became CEO. And both of them very much come from a games background, very innovative games. And Rod in particular is a great fan of making games for himself. So we don't really know what's happening there. We are presuming, as we'll discuss later, we'll presume that the CFO will be taking charge till they find a new CEO. But it'd be interesting. I think that one of the most interesting things is how they will look for the next CEO. Will they look for somebody with gaming experience or somebody with InWorld experience or even another CEO who enterprise experience? We really don't know. But it is certainly breaking news in that it's also come rather quickly. There's no suggestion he's been fired or anything like that. It just seems to be that he wants to set up his own company and has hence departed. So those are some big items which we'll no doubt be discussing as we go along here. And just before I hand over to Tara, I've got a few other links from what you might call the open metaverse here on my desktop. Maria at Hypergrid Business reports that Podex and another company called Zetamex have actually teamed up. This was the news yesterday, by the way, on a new currency. Basically, Podex is a UK-based, over here, in fact, virtual currency exchange, and ZMX are pretty much similar sort of operating out of West Virginia, and they're also a open sim hosting company too. And Maria points out that grids generally have three payment options at the moment: any local currency they create for their own grid, or OMC, which is multi-grid, hypergrid enabled. And there's an Austrian currency exchange called Via Wox. And of course, you can potentially include PayPal in that. Currency, of course, is important for people putting things on marketplaces that they want you to buy. Whether you PayPal or in world currency is up to you. But of course, things like Linden dollars, which are used in Second Life, aren't sort of applicable outside Second Life. So new cross-platform currencies are very much to be encouraged. So that's the news on that front. Craft World, which is an open sim, and as far as I know, now hypergrid enabled. I won't swear to that. I think it is. Craft World is an open simulator grid, really devoted to crafts people and to a certain extent artists. They do overlap a little bit, and they'll be celebrating their 4th anniversary details tomorrow, the 27th of January. And if you fancy going onto the hypergrid and finding a way to Craft World, the region you want is the Chameleon region at around noon SLT. Oh, well, 12 p.m. SLT, which I never know with the AM and PM on 12. I suspect that is noon SLT, Pacific time. And yep, they have a total of 153 regions now, and around 1,000 regular users by the look of it. So anyway, fourth anniversary, starting tomorrow on Craft World. Right, now some rather interesting stuff here as usual. I have a blog open here called www.sciencespacerobots.com. There's a nice techie title for you. All one word, sciencespacerobots.com. And they had a post a couple of days ago, this would have been. Scientists using virtual reality to test moral dilemmas involving certain death of humans. Yes, now that's a handful, isn't it? But apparently they're using avatars in virtual worlds to study human behavior and various, it was a bit hard to describe really, emotional and moral responses to the idea of death and how to handle it. A very, very specific sort of interest field there, but a rather intriguing article that you might want to check out. There is actually also a video there called Moral Dilemmas in Virtual Reality, which is not one I've actually got ready on the channel, so I may pick up on that later. And finally, even further, maybe this is the real afterlife, I don't know. But a report from ISPR letters.info. And again, this would have been a few days ago. Levitation technology brings Star Trek holodecks closer to reality. And the gist of this is that it's not so much that you become a hologram, but they're working on some kind of levitation technology that actually means that the virtual environment itself is made of levitating components. In other words, they break the laws of physics. And They use ultrasound waves to levitate objects. Apparently, this was first done in 2006, and they managed to levitate an entire frog. Yep, it was a frog they used, not a mouse. These were Japanese people. And all this research is actually going on at the University of Tokyo. But basically, they have a way of manipulating particles in midair. And the idea is that by manipulating the particles in air around somebody, they'll create a kind of holodeck. You won't so much be an avatar, you'll just be swimming in a holodeck of particles. Rather interesting idea. So you can find that at ispr.info. And with that, I think it's about time I hand it over to Tara for her take on the week before we introduce our guest tonight. So over to you, Tara.
Thank you, Mel. And first off, Geo Meek tossed in a question: was the frog alive or dead?
Good point.
You know,
the article doesn't say. It would. Yeah, that could have been. Yes. What was the reaction of a flying frog to the concept?
well, I mean, I guess the question is this limited to biological objects, or does it also apply to inanimate stuff like books and computer mice?
Well, it's very odd, yes. It doesn't really describe specifically the particles. I got the impression from the tone of the thing that you're talking about static particles rather than organics. But yes, good point. If they're levitating a frog, that is certainly an organic set of particles. Whether it was dead or alive is something I can't answer, actually. Interesting indeed. Yeah, a different approach for sure.
Because I'm not hearing Mal at the moment.
Oh, you're not.
Yeah, you cut out. That's happened a couple times here since we started.
Right.
But I'll persist because it's my turn. And greetings from the Pacific Northwest of the U.S. In the RL Sim, where again today the sun is out and the temperature is probably headed for the low 50s. My sympathies to the rest of the U.S. where extreme cold and snow and serious winter weather has been conspiring to keep folks indoors. On this part of on the left coast, the reverse has been true, and actually, the lack of precipitation is fairly alarming. We've had red flag warnings in various spots where a red flag warning is a warning that's posted in forested areas or open areas where there's a high risk of fires, of forest fires or grassland fires. And this is not the time of year you normally see those around here, so or in California. So that's rather scary. The snowpack isn't happening yet, and that's also pretty disturbing for water supplies for next summer.
It's a shame, real shame. I can't send you any of our rain because we've got an awful lot of it, floods and all.
Yeah, well, it's welcome to climate change. This is Anyway. Let's see. A special thanks to Daniel Voyager for a nice little write-up on Chilbo this week in his blog. Thank you, Dan. I wish Chilbo was still in some ways the community that it was several years ago, but community people activity has definitely declined, unfortunately, but that's just the way things happen. Anyway, on not a personal note, but on a Second Life people note, I just learned this morning Dirk Talamaska has been hospitalized since Friday, apparently with extreme difficulty breathing. His brother is updating his Facebook page as more info becomes available. Apparently, as of today, he's stable, but that's all we know. So by all means, keep Dirk Talamaska in your thoughts, prayers, positive energy, whatever works for you on that front. But hope he recovers quickly and is back among the virtual. Let's see. Before I comment on the the big news items, a couple of other things that caught my attention before that. Um, Machinima.com, which is known for machinima that aren't from Second Life, and largely from what we usually refer to as gaming sites. Uh, anyway, machinima.com and Microsoft had a promotional deal in which content producers for the online network for machinima.com were paid extra to endorse Xbox One. According to a report from Ars Technica, at least one promotion was in effect where Machinima creators were paid an extra $3 per click through per thousand views for video content that featured the Xbox One or its related services. To qualify, a video had to contain a minimum of 30 seconds of Xbox One gameplay within its opening 2 minutes, and they were tagged accordingly. There was a leaked copy of the legal agreement backing the promotion, and it made clear this video content be focused on driving awareness of Xbox One release, adding the caveat that you may not say anything negative or disparaging about machinima.com, the company, not the film, Xbox One, or any of its games. There were also clauses to ensure the creator indicates they were personally interacting with the game being discussed. Um, and Ars Technica points out the deal between Machinima and Microsoft may contradict guidelines laid out by the FTC governing the way such relationships and endorsements should be conducted.
Indeed. Yeah.
Specifically, the FTC would require any such arrangement be clearly disclosed in the videos. The promotion only extended for the first 1.225 million video views, so the total but it's one more example of game industry's increasingly complicated relationship with the burgeoning YouTube scene. Um, and various game companies have had suits and what have you challenging. Um, Nintendo was among the first publishers to challenge YouTubers' right to make money from Let's Play videos featuring its games. And of course, as we all know, Second Life has taken a taken a very permissive stance on using Second Life for the creation of Machinima. So this has never been an issue there, but it's interesting that Nintendo and others have been proprietary about it. Anyhow, I thought that was all rather interesting. Yeah.
I'm just I'm amazed that they would actually if they only gave $3 for 1,000 clicks and have to do all that compromising at the machinima to get it, and then the cutoff point is so many million. I mean, they can't have been collecting too many multiples of $3. It hardly seems worth it, but there you go.
Yeah, well, if they're already set up to be, to be getting paid for machinima posted at YouTube,
Mm.
it's not a huge deal. And who knows they obviously this is something that's been done under the table or out of sight of prying eyes or attempted to. So
Mm.
they may be doing another round, and this may be was a first trial balloon on the part of Microsoft. And Machinima to see how it would work. But it's
Yeah.
interesting that very well may be in hot water with the FTC.
Oh, we might come back to that. Yeah.
Yeah, this probably isn't the end of that story. Yes. Well, obviously the big news items are Rob Humble's departure and the closing of Cloud Party, or at least the buyout of Cloud Party. And there are a couple of reading through the comment threads on the kind of the major blog posts about both these items. One other thing there were a number of comments about people being kind of snarky about Rod's lack of visibility in World, and of course, then other people coming back and saying, you don't know how much he was in World, because anybody who's a Linden knows that as soon as you log into Second Life as a Linden, you're inundated. So if they really want to be in World and get a sense of what it's like and what people are responding to and all that, they're going to come in with an alt, no brainer. And Pay, in her usually wonderful way, summed this up. How would you know whether or not any Linden Lab employee is or isn't InWorld? After all, just like us, they can use alts whenever they don't, which don't have the Linden tag. Um, it was, and she commented that in Rod Humble's case, it was from his own comments that he preferred being in World via an alt because it gave him, unsurprisingly, a better means of interacting with others than if he arrived in his toga-wearing official self. Uh,
Everybody runs a mile. think the beach is coming.
Yeah, and she also threw in. We tend to take an awful lot for granted in Second Life. Just because we do doesn't necessarily mean our assessments are correct. So, point taken. That's
And Nara did actually post today, and I presume you saw that blog too, which is
yes.
is that the one? Yeah.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I'm going to get to that later.
Right. Okay.
These were my earlier notes, and then I've added to it since then.
Right.
Yeah, the cloud potty thing again. Cloud potty thing. Yeah, potty. Yeah, party. Uh, in our notes, the commented kind of on that theme that you expressed of Yahoo's tendency to be acquiring small startups as a means of getting back some of its devs, some of its its coders, and she said Yahoo, who hasn't exactly covered themselves in glory with either the acquisition of Flickr or the overhaul of their own Yahoo groups, will anybody from the old cloud party be sufficiently motivated to sign up to whatever does follow? Excellent question.
Very good.
So yeah, I think stay tuned on that. Is this just a suck up the developers, or is this actually, do they actually have plans to do something with the concept and the back end that the developers had come up with? Let's see. Eat your vegetable segment as usual. One of the things that certainly figures in comments about Rod Humble's departure, people who say, well, he didn't do anything. And the one of the issues that's been very clear to me for some time is that a lot of what's been going on over the last couple of years has been under the hood, or as one of the Linden Lab developers said, between the walls. It's not stuff that's instantly visible for the most part. So it's stuff that affects things in the bigger picture and the longer term as those things are fixed, and you may or may not really notice them. But one of the things that Inara pointed out this week is there's an issue. One of the things that is involved in how the software in Second Life runs are things called software libraries. And these are bits and bobs that are kind of like a library. They're kind of like a library reference section that the main program dips into to accomplish other things. And one of the major ones of these that is in wide use is called WebKit. And it's used within the viewer for a number of tasks. For example, it powers the built-in web browser, is used to display profiles unless you're using a viewer that supports the legacy profiles. And it's also used for media on a prim and many InWorld televisions. And there's been apparently users have been encountering some issues of when trying to view YouTube videos via the built-in browser or media on a prim, reporting they're seeing an error message informing them that, quote, you're using Safari browser or Windows that will soon stop supporting, unquote, or reporting they have sound and no video. This is apparently related to the age of the WebKit library that is in use in some places in the Second Life setup. Apparently an Adobe engineer has commented on this on the Jira, explained the problem, as indicated he's contacted the lab about it as well, but it's unclear at this point how this is going to get handled going forward. So stay tuned on that one. That struck me as a fairly significant bug, especially for anyone who is using media on a prim or relying on people launching browsers for watching stuff in world. Um,
We've had even on the NBTV channel here a few incidents like that, and I think actually it may be to do with the increased adoption of HTML5. A lot of the video sites now default to HTML5 rather than Flash, and I think it might be a glitch where they, if they can't find, if the browser doesn't support HTML5, then the glitch might be then reactivating Flash, as it were. So it's a swap of defaults, really. But that's just a maybe.
yeah. Well, anyway, this was specifically related to WebKit. Um, there are others as well, and one of the between the walls projects that's going on is going in and updating a variety of libraries. Not this isn't specifically related to WebKit, but a lot of others that are in use, and trying to get stuff cleaned up so that it works going forward, and also for third-party viewers, which is
Yeah.
a big area. So anyway, okay, change the subject here. An installation that I've got to go see. This sounds fascinating. Betty Thoreau opened
Oh
on
yeah.
Friday an exhibit called Infinity Space. It's apparently deceptively simple, but it's a huge multi-hued horizontal space overlaid with two grids, one above the viewer's head and one below their feet, all of which recedes infinitely into the distance, no matter where you stand or how far you walk. Um, and apparently there are also some mushrooms or something you can park on, and it will move you around it, and it sounds like it's very trippy. So the sim is Southern Charm, 2 words, and that's on your check it out this week list. Let's see. Yeah, there's the okay, that's the rest. That's yeah, okay. The rest of this is all, kind of taking some chunks out of NR Pay's look back on Rod's tenure, and I think that'll probably just kind of weave in as we move forward here. So on that note, I think I've covered everything on my list for the moment.
Oh, okay. Well, thanks, Tara. Yeah, I would. It's funny. I'm seeing Dirk McGeegan in our chat on live stream, and I'm presuming it is his brother's brother. But yes, I'd like to add my sort of get well soon messages to Dirk out there. Invaluable member of the community, and of course, particularly with virtual worlds best practices coming up and everything. He's crucial behind the scenes people who you don't hear of mentioned by name too much, but he does an awful lot of stuff. So
Yeah, he's been very. Dirk Telemaska is very active in the new use. Has been very active in new users related stuff,
yeah,
and he has a wonderfully wicked sense of humor.
yeah.
I have been on the receiving end of a practical joke or two from him over the years. So yes, get better soon.
Right. Somebody's complaining we may be getting a black screen, but it does seem to be okay here. I suspect this is down to live stream as usual. It usually is when buffering is concerned. So, time to open up the conversation a bit. And so I'd like to introduce a special guest this week. Oddly enough, he's somebody who's never actually been on this show before, which is very hard to believe. He's been one of these people I'd always sort of intended to get on. His name is Selby Evans, although his avatar is possibly more widely known as Thinkerer Melville. So, welcome, Thinkerer, or Selby.
Well, thank you very much.
I can't even tell. I'm probably going to be switching names constantly through this.
That's all right. I do that too.
Yeah, my tongue falls over some of the names, and Thinker is one of them. So we'll widen up this conversation to include all sorts of things that are going on shortly. But I think it's about time we actually introduced you. Yeah, I know you have an involvement with the hobo community in Second Life, which is a very fondly not only remembered group, but also a group that people still belong to, because it's kind of a group for people without homes in Second Life in many ways. You know, everybody, or a lot of people who come into Linden Lab initially sort of become hobos because that's what they are, if you see what I mean. But also you've been active in Kitely, which we'll cover in a bit too. I also remember, and it's funny we're talking about Second Life changes here. I seem to remember that it was many years ago now. I think it was around the time Metanomics was going, but I think it was you. You held a competition, didn't you, for a future Second Life interface? This was back when Second Life's actual interface was nothing like what we're used to today. And I remember, you know, the entries for that coming in here, there, and everywhere. People have visions of how they wanted it to be. But, you know, particularly with all the changes now, some of the comments about Ros leaving have been based on sort of, oh, he's done wonders behind the scenes, but communication hasn't been one of them. And, you know, as Tara said, a lot of the things we can attribute to him are sort of, you know, fewer improvements and things like that, and different strands of development. But maybe you just like tell us a little about yourself and what you're doing before we launch into a sort of topical conversation.
Okay. Well, actually, you will immediately realize that I must have attention deficit disorder, or ADHD, because I do various things and have for a long time. Yes, I work. I am one of the leaders in the hobo community, and I support the Hobo Island, and we invite that has a good sized sandbox. We invite people to come over and learn how to use. Well, how to begin doing things in Second Life. There are usually some helpful people around. I write a blog, run a blog, and that posts about 6 times a week. We may want to cover some things. The blog is called Virtual Outworlding, and you can look it up under that name, Virtual Outworlding. Outworlding, people wonder what that means. Well, it's outworld, as I used it, means the opposite of InWorld, and so immediately, if I'm writing a blog or doing anything that is publicly available to the general public, not just people in Second Life, I call that outworlding. And so doing a video, for example, what you're doing here is going out to the public. Now you got some question.
Oh, no, indeed. I actually use the same terminology. You know, sort of. I advertise the show and say "InWorld at," or you know, and sort of refer to outworld. This is my outworld feed. This is my InWorld feed. Of course, a lot of people don't understand what what I mean when I say outworld, because they don't understand InWorld. But that's another ball game entirely. But yes, your blog is. I obviously get subscriptions to that, and there's usually at least one post a day. And you do tend to post a lot of interesting things about events too.
I do.
It's I don't know if maybe at some point today you can sort of let us know of any up and coming events we haven't covered yet. I have a little list later on that I'll no doubt get to when we cover the InWorld side of things. Now, we've got a big interest in, you know, our focus here is Second Life to a great extent, but it's also more the open metaverse. And you have land, I guess it is, in Kitely's OpenSim setup, do you?
Yes. Let me explain a little bit. I have a piece of land, but the main activity is in association with the new media
consortium,
which yes, well, and if you would, people here would probably recognize it more readily under the name Avatar Repertory Theater. And
yes.
As a matter of fact, we have an event coming up this coming Friday evening. We will be doing the latter part. They will. I don't really do anything. I just provide the space. They will be doing the closing scenes from the um, Learned Women, and possibly I will be catching a video of that and putting it on my blog. I do have already the initials, the
The first
beginning, the
scene,
first
yeah.
scene one.
Well, it's
So
funny. It's funny you should mention that. I think we showed it last week, or if we didn't, it's on this week's playlist. The Act One
mhm.
that you did in our performance section, because I always like to find. I always love to see proper choreography in theatre, and the performance that just goes beyond the guy miming to a microphone, music wise. So they're really great. They're great little shows, actually. Um,
Yeah,
mm,
I would also mention, since you're talking about choreography, I would mention that I frequently cover the ballet Pixel,
mm.
um, and I have a couple of videos about that back somewhere on my blog, um, where I don't cover the whole show. I just cover a few excerpts from it.
Mm.
For example, I do have some excerpts from the Nutcracker, which
Oh
was
yeah.
done, of course, at Christmas time. Um,
There's an increasing amount of these type of things happening in the world now. There's I know that coming up today we've got a clip on the coronation of Elizabeth I and stuff like that. Very very sort of almost historical interest as well as literary interest, sort of
mhm.
productions that are using avatars. So it really does seem to be a growing, a growing performance art in Second Life and Open Sim for that matter.
Yes.
Hmm.
Uh, well, go ahead. You had another question.
Oh, right. No, just commenting generally on that. That does seem to be a growing trend, sort of
Mhm.
over and above, the fantastic art installations and things we have. But sort of, more highbrow performance is probably what I call it.
Yes,
So,
that's fair. That's fair,
yeah.
and that's a bit surprising because everybody thinks of virtual worlds as lowbrow, as games, and
Mm.
of course we
We know better.
we definitely know. Not that we mind doing some lowbrow. I also sponsor Lauren's Tuesday event.
Oh, yes.
Um, Uh, and we have obviously, well, that's very standard stand-up comedy.
Mm.
Probably not safe for work. I mentioned that to attract
But
people to it.
yeah, well,
Um,
we occasionally show, but I should actually at this point just give kudos to Geo Meek again, who's filming us today. But Geo, of course, films Lauren's thing, and sometimes he produces short extracts, which are nice because you can just pop in the odd extract here or there rather than the whole show. But yes, it's no, I don't.
It's definitely not safe for work, I would say.
Yeah,
Unless
but
you work remotely like I do and can drift away from work focus with impunity.
yeah, but why it's still got the evenings, and it's very legit. I mean, there's nothing outrageous about it that you can't see far worse in RL and stuff. It's Lauren's own humour is probably an acquired taste, but in fact, the time I find him most hilarious is in chat, text chat, because if he's in somebody else's conversation and he's doing that live interruption thing, he's absolutely hilarious because he'll be spot on with comments that have you rolling on the floor. I think
and
he probably has to work
we have
harder on.
multiple we have multiple not just Lauren, but we have multiple comedians
Yeah.
and invite comedians.
Well, that's actually exactly what I was going to say. But the show itself, of course, isn't all Lawrence. So you can pick and choose. That some comedians are funny, some of them maybe not so funny. But there is that whole variety in there. So it's a whole comedy forum, really, a stand-up comedy forum rather than just the Lawrence show, which at one time it was. Have you been sponsoring that? I guess originally it was sponsored by Tree TV, wasn't it? And then it's just sort of gone independent. So have you been sort of taking it over since then?
Well,
Continuing?
not not exactly directly, but yes, it was actually the show was existed for quite a long time before Treat took it and began broadcasting it.
Mm.
And more recently, yes, I've been sponsoring the broadcast. Of course, it's done on my sim, so in a sense, I sponsor the location in any
Yeah.
case. And yes, I've been sponsoring the video presentation. Um, and right, it's what I'm essentially what I'm trying to promote in virtual worlds is entertainment from virtual worlds, because I think that's a
Mm.
very natural thing to do in virtual worlds.
I think that's our focus with broadcasting too. I mean, obviously, some people come to us and ask us to do, serious stuff, and that I'm very keen on that, especially if they want to pay us or something as well. But it is projecting entertainment. I think the wonderful idea about YouTube's and the live streams and just video in general is that hopefully it catches people's interest who aren't actually immersed in these worlds already. It's a big jump, to download a client, go into a world, and be open to discovering a community and actually realizing there's real people around you instead of cartoons. And some people don't adapt to that easily. And I think when they see, be it a chat show or comedy or music or whatever, on video that's filmed in these places, then they get more of a feel, for what's going on. And hopefully, 1 in 10 or 2 in 10 is tempted to look into a bit further, So say, come and
Yes.
come in world and join us, and say, what does that mean?
Hmm. Yes. Well, I see for example, video. I run a fair number of videos on my blog,
Mm.
embed them, and people can, so when they see the blog, they can easily look at, and usually these are short, like 5 minutes or so, but they can see the blog and they can see the video and they can find out something about what we do in Second Life. And so I see, and again, that's an outworld promotion, and basically it is promotion as far as I'm concerned.
Somebody in our channel, somebody called On Web, actually. Hello, On Web, says in the real world, the realization that we are all connected is not acknowledged, whereas in the virtual world, this connection is realized. That's a nice quote there.
Yes, I'd
Well,
say, and indeed, that's we're very much aware of that, and we learned that part of in Second Life or in virtual worlds.
indeed, indeed. So, tell me a little bit more about your connection with Kitely. To be honest, I very rarely use Kitely. I know that, I mean, Maria is on here quite often, and we go into the details. They have a very different mechanic for the way they work, subscription and paying for the amount of avatars that are in, and time sim is on and online and stuff. It's behind the scenes. The financial model is very different from Second Life or, the wall garden open sims like InWorlds or Avination. But basically, it is, isn't it, providing a sort of bridge between the idea of the OpenSim installations and the hypergrid, and something that's visible and can be just jumped into via the web on occasions too. You can use it as both, can't you? A regular client and via the web.
No, you used to work that way. Well, actually, um, I don't. Well, in the dim distant past, it actually definitely worked that way. But more recently, you actually had to download an OpenSim client,
Oh, right. Okay.
and it would automatically in the past, Kitely would automatically open that client for you.
Mm.
But now, because of some changes in the way the browsers work, you can't do that. So essentially you have to open your browser and I mean your viewer, and I use Firestorm, of course.
Mm.
You have to open your viewer, and then you can go into a place in Kitely. Kitely is indeed somewhat different, although it has recently, actually in this year, initiated new pricing arrangements, which are somewhat closer to what we are accustomed to. In fact, the viewer, a person who comes in, a newcomer, would not necessarily even notice a difference, or have to notice a difference. They, for At this point, the owner of land in some way would pay for all of the people who are on it, or most of the land actually is not really metered the way it used to be. Most of the land operates essentially the same way, or a lot of the land. I can't really say most because there's there are a lot of things sims that are essentially private, and people don't let anybody come in.
Yeah.
And there's no reason you don't want to go in either. But there's a lot of public land, and you can go to all of that public land for nothing. In fact, I have opened up, well, actually, in association with New Media Arts, we have opened up what I called Cookie 2, which is somewhat like the cookie in Second Life, except, well, actually, somewhat like the cookie and somewhat like Hobo Island and other places in Second Life, and it's intended to be a home for the development of videography, and theater and things of that sort. There is another kind of land ownership, which in which the land you have potentially a huge, well, essentially an unlimited number of sims if you want them, and they will cost you, each sim in the long run would cost you about $1 a month. Now those sims you will have to pay for time for people to be there.
Right.
And that's more of an esoteric kind. I have that kind of arrangement in one of the things I own, because it's ideal for making videos.
Virus database updated.
Oh, I'm sorry about that. If you heard. Right. Yeah, that's interesting. If I'm very I have my home as well on the hypergrid is OS grid, and I usually, if possible, will hypergrid to other grids from there. So presumably using when I like you use Firestorm for Second Life, but I tend to use Singularity when I'm on the OpenSims, mostly because I hate having to remember passwords and stuff. So I just give a different viewer a different account. But presumably, this means I could. It is hypergrid enabled, isn't it? So I could.
Not yet.
Oh, it's
Not
not.
yet.
Ah, okay.
They intended to have it. What happened is that there was a big update in December on OpenSim software, and that had a lot of bugs in it that they had to go in and correct, and they have done that. And now they finished the process of correcting. Then they are now setting up Kitely Market so that you can buy things on the market and have them delivered in the OpenSim somewhere.
Right.
I mean, in the hypergrid.
Yeah.
And so then that might even come next week, though I don't, maybe a week after. And yes, then they do intend to implement hypergrid, but it's not here yet.
It seems to me, though, quite a good. Oh no, my lips are flapping. But it seems to be a good model in a sense. Although I must say that it will feel strange to sort of teleport into an environment, and I'm the only one there, and I have a look around, and sort of I'm thinking, oh, it's at it again. Sorry. Well, I'm glad my virus checker's working, put it that way. And I could teleport in. It's just rather odd feeling that, the moment I teleport in, my individual self, as it were, is costing, that grid provider money. But there again, they're getting the sims so incredibly cheap.
It's not going to cost any real money in that context. When you teleport in, you will teleport into a public land.
Right.
And that public land is running at a fixed price. In other words, well, right now I'm sponsoring with New Media Arts. I'm sponsoring the Cookie 2 is actually a mega region. It's 4 times the size of an ordinary region, and I think I pay $35 a month for it. And if you went there, it would not cost anybody anything because it's not metered.
Oh, okay, right. So it's a flat.
So you wouldn't have to worry about it. And the only place you could go if you were going into Kitely, if you could go into a metered land, it would be because somebody had set permission for you to go there. So
Yeah.
you're not going to ever cost anybody anything unintentionally.
Right. Oh, it's fascinating because the two things that I'm very keen on is the the idea of I mean actually well, Rodder's departed, so we I guess we don't know how imminent the lightweight iPad version of Second Life is, but I've always liked the idea that people can go to an embed code of, say, this program or something else and watch it as video on the web, and there'd be an easy button that underneath that said "Join us in World," and like the Slurl thing, but it would actually teleport you to maybe another kind of embed on a companion web page that contains the environment rather than the video. So I think these things will always have to be lightweight, but I know you're interested in interface and stuff too. I've always sort of wanted a metaverse viewer, as it were, that gets rid of all the Second Life specifics. Maria tells me it's not easily possible, but is custom built to be adaptable to almost any environment, but will be stripped down. Obviously, by its very nature, it would have to be stripped down of the complex nature of the and the machinery behind individual environments, but just something that would allow you to pop in as a guest to the place as opposed to the broadcast, and links, as it were, which is where codes come in. But also, of course, the idea that we put on shows or events and stuff where you could, have these complexes of sims, and maybe you want to charge people for entry, I don't know, a dollar a head or something, and the thought that could be done easily, like through something like Kitely's Marketplace, where people would just pay PayPal something and get an entry ticket. You can do it with Linden's and stuff like that in Second Life, but there's a whole kind of hoo-ha going on to actually do it. It would be nice to be able to click to enter and then just cough up a few cents on PayPal or something to get in, and then have that lightweight experience, which it seems to me would be ideal for concerts and things where the work is put on into the stage and the performers. It doesn't really matter what the avatar looks like, as long as they can talk and chat and stuff like that. So have you got any particular aspirations? I don't mean doing it yourself, but anything you'd like to see in that direction, interface wise, that you think needs to be changed in Second Life and open sim wise?
Well, actually, that's one of the reasons why I'm saddened to see Cloud Party vanishing. Because that was one that did work that way. No, I don't have any direct aspirations to do that, and that's partly because I would agree with Maria. It's going to be hard and expensive. Second Life itself, Linden Lab, it did make a test, about 3 years ago.
Oh yeah.
That was essentially running the world part, what is now running on your own computer, running that on a server, so that only the image, the video part had to be transmitted, and that will work. It's just it's expensive, and so it's not going to work. It's not going to work very well until in due time the cost of servers is going to go way down too. So it's conceivable. But I don't foresee that as something that's readily available right now. The main communication method that I see is like kind of thing you're using or we're using. Make a video, make a real-time presentation, something like that. I like the video because the video is something people can see anytime. It can sit there and accumulate viewers.
And it's and we're moving to total video on demand these days, so people can do it in their own time as well, which I think is really helpful. You get certain people watching replays of the show and things, and they'll do it on, I don't know, Monday night at 8 p.m. local time or something, rather than they won't be watching us live, which means they're not in the chat room, but it does mean you get a lot of mileage that way. Yeah, so I mean, it's all really outreach, outreach to the outworlders,
Yes.
as you would say. Okay,
Not to not to mention the there's always that unknown variable that Facebook has capitalized on of something goes viral, or even maybe it doesn't go viral to the point of being millions of viewers, but you something on Facebook, something that's out there in canned video, people pass things along, so you never know what
Hmm.
what may get passed along as interesting to folks. So
I know.
Hmm.
I found one in some remote news source today. I forget who it was, but this video popped up. It was from somebody posting like how-to videos and stuff on OpenSim, and it was just a 30-second thing. Found a video viewer in OpenSim, and I looked at the post, rather than opening up the whole page, and I recognised a certain familiar face, well, like looking into an avatar mirror. And I thought, what's this? And of course, I played it, and I don't know. I think I don't know what it was. An edition of Crossworlds that was playing on this InWorld OpenSim viewer. He never said where the viewer was and where it came from. I mean, you can use media on the program anyway, but it's odd, because this was an old program. It's still relevant. It was Justin Casey I was interviewing. But just popped up from nowhere. And, I thought, some things are just, this wasn't viral, but it was just one of those things that have filtered through the system over the years somehow and suddenly popped up. So yeah, that is wonderful when you see all this, all your old work re-emerging. But okay, let's sort of open up the conversation to the sort of topical stuff at the moment. Now, actually, before I do, there is a chap I've never actually managed to get him on this program. Sunny Salamander, his name is, and he's actually developing. He was at the Open Sim conference talking about it last year. It's called Pixie Viewer. And I did actually try this out a few times, and it was limited to his own open sim. But he, again, had actually done something that worked on the web. In other words, I went to a web page, and it loaded a viewer into the web page that allowed me to access his open sim. He had his own peculiar interface. It wasn't a direct embed of a singularity view or anything. He had a particular interface that operated with his open sim. And he got a few really interesting things in it. For example, you could select, an object built with prims, and you could press a button and highlight it and then send the object code to a 3D printer. So, you could literally
Hmm.
print out a statue you found in a virtual world as an ornament that you could, put on your shelf or whatever. So there were some very interesting things in this interface that you don't find in other viewers. And I remember the Second Life streaming business there, and I thought that worked very well. We did lots of experiments, mixing, some of us coming in that way, some of us coming in from the InWorld client, and actually, although you weren't, they only brought certain sims online.
Yep.
I know Slim Warriors music venue is one of them. We go there, for example, chat, and although you couldn't teleport out in this viewer to another location, if you were prepared to walk, you could. In other words, the adjacent sim was available if you actually walked into it. It just wasn't available officially as a location that was available for streaming. So it was really sort of halfway there, but it worked fast. It was seamless to all intents and purposes. You felt, like you're in Second Life, and you were talking to somebody who was logged in with a Second Life client too. So, I sort of thought that was very workable. But again, it needs to be a lightweight sort of temporary exercise where you can just kind of jump in. Cloud Party, though, I mentioned it. Tara mentioned it too. I'd be interested to know your thoughts on this. Although it's closing in February, which was the headline news, of course, what's the real news is that it has been bought by Yahoo, and they bought it part and parcel, basically. We don't know at the moment where they're after the engineers, the dev people, the code writers, or whether they are actually after the platform as well, and will maybe relaunch it under a new name like Yahoo Space or something. Any thoughts on that, Tara? Both of you, Tara. Yeah.
Well, I actually, one of the things I immediately think back, I think I'm trying to think when I started using Yahoo. Essentially, I started using Yahoo when the internet became available, I guess. And I've used it and been routinely disappointed in it, and basically cut out everything, almost everything that I was doing with it. So I'm not very optimistic about what they can do with it. But and of course, I don't even know what their intention is. So I have talked with a number of artists, and that is one of has been one of in Second Life, who were concerned about the terms of service, and that is one of their alternatives that they were looking into, and they were pleased with it. So I'm a little sorry to see it. Well, I hope it doesn't go away, but I'm kind of inclined to think it is going away. So that's basically my reaction to Cloud Party.
Yeah, I noticed when it started, it got a lot of traction, and it seemed to be building up, particularly with the Facebook link. A lot of people initially, probably due to the fact that everybody can post a link on Facebook, and then I got the impression it reached a sort of plateau. In other words, it wasn't so much growing, probably growing slowly, but, it wasn't getting that sort of huge rise it got at the beginning. But, apart from the Pixie Viewer, which, oh, by the way, several people have mentioned in chat that Pixie Viewer seems to have gone quiet. They did actually post a blog a couple of months ago. And I think Hypergrid Business reported too. They have gone quiet, but that means they're not doing anything. That doesn't mean they're not doing anything. They actually posted a blog saying that the cost of development and stuff like that behind the scenes was they had to rethink it all. But they didn't. They're not vanished. They're still working on it. It's just maybe they've slowed down a bit and have to address licensing issues and stuff like that. That probably if they've used bits of other people's code and things, they probably have to address that. So I think we'll see them back ultimately in the near or further future. But yes, yeah, I mean, I'm the same. I mean, my email has been, I used to have a sort of British Post Office email that didn't happen, and that got taken over by an ISP, and that got sort of integrated into Yahoo, and tied to Yahoo for years, but to dubious advantage in many ways. But a lot of people, of course, think of, they compare places like Second Life to AOL in the early days. The idea you had a portal and, they controlled all the facilities within the portal. So they gave you the places to go to on the web. They didn't prevent you going elsewhere, but they tried to dictate where you would go and things. And it seems to me that Yahoo are they're trying to make a recovery now from a really downtime for them, I guess, and they're doing it by buying up stuff. I don't hear much about them innovating anything. It all just seems to be buying in facilities, developers, and stuff like that. But if they are going to become a player with virtual worlds, Cloud Party might be a very good launching point. I would just hate to see it go to waste, as it were.
Yeah, I guess that's my basic reaction too. Is a certain level of skepticism about Yahoo's ability to do something with it, as far as actually taking what's been done and building further on it, and being effective with it. And I will admit that I still have a Yahoo Basic News page that I continue to use as a landing page, although my frustration with it is right at the tipping point. It's been at the tipping point before, but not for some time. But over the last several months, the frequency of its relevant updates, it seems to be gathering an awful lot of paid crap. in the actual page news headline items that I find fairly annoying. It seems to be devolving into a mostly infomercial page as opposed to an actual news page, which is really a shame given the potential. I don't know. I don't. Obviously they have to pay the bills. I won't quibble with that. But doing it on, on the heads of infomercials, that leaves a bad taste in my mouth. Yeah. It's not my only news source, but so I think that's the big question I have is, are they just sucking up developer talent? Or are they actually planning to do something further with it? So time will tell.
It's a shame. I mean, we've covered this before, but this new, it was a few months ago we had somebody on the show saying it's a shame we seem to be moving back to the days of terminals. because it's the web is still the web and the internet is still the internet, although it's cluttered by big media hogging bandwidth and advertisers slowing down pages and everything else like that. But increasingly the big players seem to be trying to build portals that it is back to the old days of wanting, you to log into them as a homepage, and they want to sort of, they want to be the ones in control of the links you're going to click and where you're going to go. And, that menu-driven system to me is going out along with traditional television. People want to get at stuff on demand and follow what they want. I don't really think they want these, but portals, even the Facebooks are in decline, because they're just overloaded, and you're swamped with what the provider wants, not what you want. And that's the antithesis of the internet as a whole, be it the web or be it virtual worlds. We don't want a menu system. Unless it's a menu system that helps us do what we want. We don't want it sort of stuck in our face, but sadly it seems to be happening. But, I don't know. I mean, it may be on the agenda that, but like we were talking the other week about TV interfaces, traditional television, all these smart TVs have that rather Windows 8-like sort of tile structure, and you're forever trying to press your remote and scroll along it or use your iPad to scroll. And it's not the most engaging of interfaces, just think, if you booted up your Samsung TV or something, a sort of 3D living room, and chose whether to click on TV or tape library or local network and stuff like that, would be far more intuitive than endless piles of tiles that you scroll through, trying to find what you want.
But the thing with endless piles of tiles, what I have a instant visual hit on is, what about that pile of papers on one's desk?
Yes.
And there are those who are chronic file keepers, who have themselves well trained to put things away so they can find what they're looking for. There are those of us who engage in what I have long referred to as the archaeological school of file organization. And this works great as long as you have a general sense of what time something came in. So therefore, where approximately in the pile it might live. Yes. And so then you dive into the pile to that approximate section, carefully moving other sections to get at the piece you want. And of course, this system works great until something comes along that plays havoc with the layering. Yeah. and then all bets are off.
Well, filing is not all that good either, because what you will come up with is, yes, I know I filed that away, but I forgot what folder I put it in. Did I file it under this thing or that thing or the other thing? Yeah. I had a solution for that long ago when I actually ran big projects. And that was, whenever I got a document that was important, I had 3 Xerox copies made and filed a copy under each one of those things.
Yeah, good plan.
Yeah, that's the linking system we were meant to have got away from. I mean, my desktop, I never have my desktop showing on Windows, but if I toggle it on, there's a recycle bin and there's usually a hell of a mess on the desktop. But I have a one folder on the desktop saying shortcuts, and every so often I drag everything on the desktop into the folder called shortcuts just to get rid of it. And, I'll open the shortcut folder and occasionally search for something that's long lost. But
Oh yeah, well, that's
that's
like
it.
I have miscellaneous crap, more miscellaneous crap, still more miscellaneous crap.
Well, one thing actually I have found useful is local network stuff. I've got like a little streaming device that plugs into the TV and accesses all my local network folders where I've got videos filed by a videographer or by subject or whatever. And it always defaults to most recent. And, it doesn't matter how many thousand clips I've got on the network somewhere. It always shows me the ones I've saved most recently, which is very useful. And it also hunts, it must be keeping a big database hogging my machine somewhere, but it also hunts for things really easily, almost better than anything I can do on the desktop itself. But that's all down to the tags for the dates and times and the titles and creators and being able to sift through that information on your behalf. But I do find that system rather useful, I've got to admit. Far more, it's less time consuming than checking things on the PC itself. Okay, well, I guess we got our fingers crossed for whatever Yahoo decide to do by way of their portals and any virtual component that might come out of Cloud Party. I suppose if enough, I gather Cloud Party has a lot of users. So I guess if enough of them complain, they may bring it back in some form pretty quickly. So we will see.
I think
Now,
the couple of just kind of last thoughts on Cloud Party that come to mind, and one is that while they have set up some kind of a facility for people to export their content, there are a couple of gotchas in this. Apparently, the export feature has to be done item by item. So in other words, you can't select a whole bunch of stuff or your whole shebang and export it in a piece. And the second thing is apparently objects, you can export the object, but the textures don't export with the object. And this actually is an issue that I recall from back in the days of second inventory. That second inventory was you basically you had to maintain your textures separately.
Yeah.
So that's.
I also don't know what Cloud Party infrastructure was. I mean, will those backups be usable anywhere else anyway? Are they prims or meshes?
Good question.
Or, so
good question.
We don't really know. Brief interruption. The channel again on web. Actually, whoever's running Dirk M's feed just says I filed it under paper. Paper. Okay, figures. But OnWeb's also said that when you see networks broadcast the hollow environment along with 3D video and surround audio, then we will have a use for smart TVs. And it reminds me of I frequently get asked to be on a voting panel for machinima contests and things like that, and I actually make a habit of deliberately, I don't view these on the web. I do download them and I put them into a playlist folder so that I can actually look at them all in one session, which can often be a considerable number of hours, especially some of the longer machinima. But it always gives me, as a judge, if you like, the right impression of those videos, because I will be able to detect where the stereo or the surround sound field has been encoded properly. I will be able to see on the big screen things that I don't necessarily see when I'm looking on a little window. So I can actually judge all these machinima side by side, one after another. And, one that actually looked brilliant on the web will suddenly be a complete fail when you try and play it offline. So OnWeb has a rather good point there. It's very easy to do machinima and things in InWorld where you're not actually taking into account the way it would look if it's actually broadcast and streamed on a real TV, if that's the right word. Anyhow, let's move on to the the big CEO departure, Rod Vick's departure. Now, Inara Prey, of course, probably did the best sort of background blog on this earlier today. She really looked back on the 3 years of what Rod had been doing. Second Life, one thing I've noticed since the weekend started when this news broke is that Dan Voyager, Inara Prey, quite a few of the blogs have followed up on this with their opinions and their sort of little reviews and stuff. But what is noticeable is, I've got all the fashionista feeds, I've got all the general blogs and stuff coming in from Second Life, and amongst the, shall we say, average person in Second Life community, it hasn't been a squeak. It's almost as if nobody has noticed or doesn't think it's important. People like us do, and we wonder what direction it's actually going next. But it's almost as if the personality of the CEO has almost become inconsequential to many Second Life users. Personally, I'm wondering. We had the founder of Second Life, Philip Rosedale, the visionary, who moved on, and the next step was the CEO with an enterprise focus, probably ahead of his time, and some of the ideas they came up with, like the great big servers they were trying to sell to people, to a bit of a fail. But then Philip was able to step back in as the founder and be an interim CEO while they found a new founder. And of course, that was Rod Humble, who's been there for 3 years now. Has been there for 3 years, just over. And he comes not from an enterprise background, but from a gaming background. So whoever takes over is going to have a background of some sort and a sort of flavor to their way of doing things. Arguably, Rod Vick's style was much more in line with Second Life than Mark Kingdon's was, but at the same time, he seems to observers like me, he seems to have swung things into the gaming direction. And one of the blogs particularly point out that, viewer enhancements, this, that, and the other, great success, Rod did a good job, but big fail, communications. And I'm wondering, I suppose really, I'm wondering what we think Linden Lab should do about finding a new CEO. I presume, as Tara mentioned, or told me anyway, I think we can assume in the structure of things, the CFO will take over until a new CEO is found. But what should they be looking for now? And, Philip Rosedale, of course, is no longer on the board, let alone CEO. He's, he's got a conflict of interest now with High Fidelity. So he's not going to be popping back up to sort of fill in. I wonder if they'll find a fill-in CEO or they'll rush to find another actual CEO. And where will they come from? Will they come from a gaming background, an enterprise background, or even a player? Not player, but, inhabitant, resident background. Maybe it's time to find a intelligent CEO type resident somewhere who fancies the job. What do we think? What do we think? Where would we like to see this going?
I think I would really like to see somebody from a social media background. That is, I think that is one of the main characteristics of Second Life, that it is functioning primarily as a social media. That is, people are interacting with each other, and especially creative people. That is what we have, I think, is a collection of people who are highly creative and like not only being creative, but like interacting with other people who are creative. And I think that is, from my standpoint, the strong point of virtual worlds and Second Life in particular, or it has been.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was early on, so it was somebody else who said this to me, but I think it was Christian Renaud, who was at Cisco at the time, just say, it's all about presence. And at heart, the Second Life is a communications medium, very advanced one. We can do and be almost anything we want, but, it's still down to communications and presence, being with a team of people, being on your own maybe, but, being surrounded by other people. And it's this is all part of communications. It's an enhanced form of the communication industry. So the reviews that say, well done, Rod, for this and that, but what about communications, really ring home, because we've seen very little enhancement there. I mean, the thing I still miss most after all these years with Second Life is the VVox client that they brought out for the desktop at one point, because it meant I could load that little Skype-like type widget anywhere I was, in world or not, and still be in touch with my in world contacts and still get notices about what was going on, etc., etc. And then I could log in. I didn't need to be in or constantly monitoring the feeds, to find out what was going on. I would receive these messages just like I receive stuff through Skype. And I really, really miss that. And there's a virtual world we were talking about the other day. Strictly speaking, not really a virtual world, but a sort of part of the metaverse. It's a business facility called Sakoko. And we once had to go in there and film, and it was a nightmare because basically there is no world. There is just a 2D floor plan with, it's like we're looking at the Second Life map. You see your dot and the dots of people around you. Now you can chat to them in text, you can talk to them on voice, and if you see a dot representing, presentation screen, you can click on that and it launches a video or PowerPoint or whatever. So it's actually very functional for, in a very simple way, which may be good for business. But the real magic is that when you, it's all controlled by a little thing that's in your system tray, just like Skype. And you can launch the destination of the conference you're invited to, and it will launch a player effectively for that conference, that destination. But but the actual invites and stuff like that are all controlled by this Skype kind of device that's on your desktop. So it can sit there using hardly any resources quite happily, get messages to you, send you invites, and do all this kind of stuff without actually you opening the environment. And then when you want to, you open the environment, and it's just like opening a web page. It's not a web page. It's it's a viewer for that interface, but it's quick, it's very fast, and you're just there. This is back to the thing of embeds on the web. But apart from the loss of the VVox desktop client, I mean, the fact that we don't have something, especially as Linden Labs now connect to Facebook and, as you say, the social networks thing, it just seems odd to me that we don't have some of an offline messenger service, a sort of bridge between the social networking and the actual presence and the events and the actually being live communication in the 3D world. And that would be on my wish list for a new CEO to address. Maybe it's just bring back the VVox client and add your friends list and landmarks into that as a quick way of getting in. I'm not sure.
If I can,
Yeah.
I have some thoughts here, and the thing about a CEO is a CEO. Well, two things. First off, the fact that there has been no comment in the general user blogosphere, as distinct from the more geekily inclined
Yeah.
blogosphere, virtual world blogosphere, strikes me as simply a reflection of the fact that to the average person, the CEO's impact is not as obvious, and in part because it tends to occur over time. A new CEO comes on board, and they'll have a vision that they'll come in with an idea of what they want to accomplish, but going from that idea to its implementation, there'll be a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years in what it takes to actually get to that, to that vision. And along the way, in any profit organization, whether it's publicly traded or not, there's pressure to make it pay. In other words, the bottom line, what's happening to the bottom line. And the reality with Second Life is, first off, it's privately held. It's not publicly traded,
Mm.
but the board of directors are all venture capitalists,
Mm.
and you know where their priorities are.
Oh yeah.
They want their investment to pay off. They certainly don't want to lose money on it in the long term. Now they may be perfectly happy with it to take some time to pay off, but when you look at you know the the erosion of Second Life's cash cow income, um, with continuing loss of total sim count,
Mm.
um, you and then you look at what Rod attempted to do as far as diversifying, which in the scheme of things would represent the idea of broadening the income base. So it's not
Mm.
reliant just on Second Life.
Yeah.
It's not reliant just on sim income, in as far as the big bucks are concerned. Then then you come around to, okay, well, what if you look at those variables, what is the existing board likely to focus on, um, in their selection of a new CEO?
Mm. Very much.
Um, I would, I'd certainly agree with Thinker on the general theme of, I would love to see someone whose focus is on, on the creatives, and on that aspect of things.
Mm.
But the other piece I think that is just screaming for improvement is how those creatives are brought into the picture as far as impact and influence on how the product develops, which has been, the lack of communication has been the big fail
Mm.
of the Rod Humble era, as far as communication from the lab to us,
Yeah.
and channels for us to communicate to the lab.
Yeah.
The probably the one thing that thanks to NRPA's blog, which has been certainly been my go-to resource for some time for the geeky side of things. At least the third-party developer group has persisted to be a regular, ongoing InWorld every week meeting of those involved. So, and that's clearly third-party developers plus some key lab folks.
Mm.
But obviously that same kind of regular get-togethers to talk about issues and the way forward has fallen off the radar for softer stuff, whether that's input from merchants, regular,
Mm.
there used to be a regular merchant related
Oh,
meeting.
I had a diary full of Linden meetings every week
Mhm,
about
yeah,
different, I forget what they were called, open meetings, that address different subjects. And
yeah. Of course, that was back in
yeah.
the era when there was a community
Mm.
person as in a leadership role within the lab.
Mm.
Hey, and that whole end of the lab was completely gutted
I mean,
some years ago.
it's a shame. I mean, but there are two things though, that strike me. I mean, we're not going to go back to the days of town halls because things get too big.
Hmm.
What needs to be addressed is the communication infrastructure that makes the whole experience better for the user. But moreover, I think it's that, we don't, whether it's Mitch Kapoor we know, but I mean, I don't know we really know that much about the board members of Linden Labs. And as you say, they're going to appoint a CEO to run Linden Labs, not to run Second Life necessarily. So it's going to be interesting how much of the new innovative stuff, which really has very little to do with Second Life, the patterns and the DOs and stuff, mobile apps, how much of that is going to be the board is going to want a new CEO to follow up. Particularly in my case, I'll be keen to know how much the board wants a mobile viewer for Second Life itself, which is in development. Or which of these things are going to be sort of shelved because of a new CEO. But at the end of the day, venture capitalists and stuff like that. I mean, maybe some are in for the short run, some are in for the long run. I get the impression somebody like Mitch Kapoor will probably invest for the long run, but I'm sure there's others that are angling at a short-term return of years. But at the end of the day, it's down to customers. You have to have a management system that is attracting new customers and making easy for customers, looking after the customers. We call ourselves residents, but at the end of the day, we're customers. And if they have an administration that is looking after and attending to the needs of the customers and deploys an infrastructure that can do that, it can only be good for growth of the platform, and it can only make the CEOs happy because growth hopefully equates with more income. I think it's the mind space that addresses that. What is the most important thing about a virtual world? Arguably, I would say it's the people that use it, because the nature of the virtual world itself is that sense of presence and that ability to communicate and demonstrate things amongst people. There are a whole load of other wonderful things like the arts, the music, and everything else, but the core, it's that ability for people to be present with each other, cooperate, collaborate with each other. And, if, I think a sensible board will realize that insofar as Second Life as a product is concerned, if that's still a major part of Linden Lab's offering, then that is the customer base they need to be addressing. Thinkerer, any thoughts on this? We've given you
First I would say amen. Yes, it is what you just said.
Fair enough.
It is, and basically, I've been here and been in Second Life for a long time, and every once in a while, people have told me about other places I could go. My reaction was always, I'm not going there unless my friends go there too.
Yeah.
I don't care what you've got and how describe how fancy it was and how much better. And so, I don't care. What I want to do is interact with my friends, with people, and meet new people. But I think there has been a lack, generally, for a long time, a lack of recognition on the part of Second Life that is the key to their success. Because anybody can do these other things you can do. The technology is fine, but the technology, anybody can do the technology these days. What you have in Second Life, and the reason Second Life is so much more successful for the present than OpenSim, is that the people are there. Yeah. And so we come here because that's where the people are. And I don't think they have realized how important that is to their business success.
Mm. Well, I mean, we were talking with Maria. I might add that when Maria was on, Maria Karloff, we were introduced to the concept of the dark metaverse, and that has definitely gone viral during the week, by the way. People love that expression. But, basically, OpenSim is geographically bigger now than Second Life. There are more regions, but it doesn't have a set population the way that Second Life has. It is probably successful because those people that want to take private operations out of a public grid can do so, and people can create things with mesh offline and bring them in. Allowing mesh in Second Life is rather odd. I mean, it's great, but it's actually started a thing which is encouraging people to work offline rather than working world, which is, but you kind of wonder about that, even though it looks good. But, a lot of the success of OpenSim is this dark metaverse, is like, colleges, businesses, things that are behind their own firewall and maybe connect to the hypergrid now and again to invite you in, but are basically, there's this huge amount of land space. It's up there. It's on the maps, as it were, and it is growing. But whenever I log into Earth's grid, which is one of the bigger grids, there's very few people on my friends list online. Sometimes nobody. Fortunately, I've got a hypergrid groups, so I can see people on other grids too, and I can jump to those grids and find people who are online. But you're right. Second Life, I keep describing as the high street of the metaverse. It's still you don't put your factory here, but you still have a need to put your storefront here.
Hmm.
You don't have your back office here, but you have your reception here. You can come here and perform.
Hmm.
Probably don't rehearse here. It's a public interfacing, and it's still the big old public interface. And that is of incredible value in itself because as people slowly start to leave and do things behind firewalls or offline and things, that's a depletion of that population. But if they can just hang on to the principle that this is the place to put your virtual shop, this is the place to do a virtual gig, things like that, then they're still onto a winner there, because what OpenSim offers is in some ways very different. It's more of a personalized space and a network, whereas this is, although it's a walled garden, it's still kind of that central public interfacing pool. And that's its value. I think if it lost that for any reason, it would be downhill very quick.
Yeah, the other Sims, OpenSim, and I guess others too, have now been extending activities quite a lot into especially into Google Plus.
Yeah.
There's always been activity in Facebook, and I've watched that and reported on that. Now there's quite a lot of and in Google Plus there is more interaction because there are numbers, small groups, and I'm in a Kitely group, and I'm in an OpenSim group, and I see posts that tell me things that I may be interested in knowing about, and that's why I follow that. So indeed, one of the ways that the OpenSim people are learning to communicate is via social media.
You're very. I agree on Google Plus. I mean, I rarely go anywhere near the Fastbook, but I do get things coming in. Like on a pod, I've got a Facebook Messenger, and I've got a newsreader that shows the posts, not the social comments, but the actual posts, the links that are posted to me via Facebook. But I find it much simpler to use Google Plus. We've got a Metaverse Week in Review group there. I know you're in the OS group, and a couple of the because I see your posts. Once a day. And in fact, what I do is I go into Google Plus and I immediately switch on the iPad to the communities. I don't read the feed of everything. I've probably already seen that in my flipbook or whatever. I go straight to the communities, and I just go through the communities one by one and read all the posts from that. So I see stuff posted by artists that I haven't caught in the main feeds, and I see OpenSim specific things that don't come up on my existing radar feeds and stuff like that. So it's a very good supplement. To the aggregated systems I already use. And Facebook doesn't stand a chance, just throws an unlimited nightmare of stuff at me.
Of course, the other issue with Facebook versus Facebook and virtual worlds, and especially with Second Life, is Facebook's stated policy regarding what names you can or cannot use. If you're, those of us who have managed to maintain Second Life names and Facebook have done so by not rubbing their nose in it, and by having names that look like their normal names. There's that very essential underlying conflict between the Second Life position as far as maintaining individual privacy and who you are, versus Facebook's outing you at every opportunity and endeavoring to get you to come out even further than you may want to, which some people object to. Some of us, I categorically refuse to answer any additional questions about where I live, what school I went to, et cetera, because it's none of their damn business. And anybody who knows me from historically, hey,
they know you anyway.
My RL name right now is the same RL name I had as a teenager, and and on through my life. So, I guess I guess one of the things that strikes me that's the the difficulty with social media is it's very much a moving target. And there are going to be trends and fads. I mean, all you have to do is look back just a few years at MySpace, when MySpace was, the big deal, and look at MySpace now.
Yeah.
And the predictions are out there, and somebody has run some some
questionable.
Some calculations that predicts that Facebook will go tits up in about 2 years, as far as declining usage is concerned. But one of the things that always amuses me about some of those predictions is in any socially based interaction opportunity in on the web, in any form, on the internet, in any form, you have communities that form, and some of those connections outlive where they were formed.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Case in point, one of my early connections was InWorld, which was the short-lived but wonderful online community that Apple had. There are still people from InWorld that I'm very much still in contact with, and that's been 20 years. So it's and there's lots of people I'm not in contact with anymore. But so how much you aim at that social media target, I think also means who are you talking to? Who's your primary market? Who do you think is your primary market? So
that's one of the problems with one of the problems with Facebook. I'm interested in promoting my blog, so the potential readers would be my primary target. In Facebook, actually, it appears that most of the people that I can find are nice ladies from Ghana who want to get me to know me better.
Yes. I know this feeling. It happens on Skype.
Those nice ladies in Ghana try to get at me too. Sorry, that my doors don't swing that direction.
Whereas the contrast in Google Plus, incidentally, is not opposed to pseudonyms, and in fact allows you to present your pseudonym. It has rules that says if they question your pseudonym, what you need to do is demonstrate that it is widely used, as you could do, for example, from Second Life.
Oh yeah.
But actually, what I've also noted is Google Plus seems to be full of geeks like me. And now maybe have a lot of other people also, but I can find a lot of people who are interested in the same. I have a number of interests, and I can find a lot of people there who are specifically interested in those kinds of things in the Google communities, Google Plus community. So I find that extremely valuable, and I foresee that as being one of the a growing intercommunication between people who are on OpenSim and people who are and the same people who are on Google Plus.
I agree. I think that's happening. Just from when I read it, the OpenSim communities, for example, are full of new stuff every day. There are a couple of Second Life ones there are, but it's mostly fashionistas. Whereas, there's no, there's special Second Life artist groups, Second Life video groups, and things like that. But it's all fairly sparsely populated. But the leading edge stuff is really well covered in there. So yeah, it's odd how some people are real evangelists for Google, and others, just, I don't want another one. I got Facebook, thank you. I think this is, virtual worlds. It's a microcosm of the real world. So anybody addressing this really has to address, the fact that the social networks used by the fashionistas and that are one set. And the geeks, if you like, are using another set. The professionals are using another set. The newbies are probably finding something else we don't even know about because we're too old and set in our ways, you know. You know, that people, you know, do use all these different channels, and in fact, we couldn't live without them, even in Second Life. That is Poz's communications failure here. You know, I do rely on the Google Calendar to tell me what's on in Second Life, and I likewise with Google Plus, and I do actually have some kind of link to Facebook where if I've actually accepted an invitation, I get it in my calendar, but you know, I've got to go to Facebook to accept it after time, which is annoying. Yeah, I don't know, but I really take this point that possibly the person they want is somebody, you know, who has a knowledge of social networks and fast moving changes, because mobile technology. You know, a few years ago, we were all very evangelistic about Second Life and virtual worlds. But, you know, that requires immersion. It's a place to slow down. It's not like television where you just chill out and get passive. It's interactive, but it's something that requires attention, you know, whereas mobile tech is forcing people away from attention spans. It's all quick bursts of conversation and news and headlines, and nobody gets to meet. They just get all this sort of superficial, viral stuff. And I often say, well, you know, yeah, you're mobile and you've got this and that, and it's fine when you're out and about. But when you come home, slow down a bit, immerse yourself in something, you know, instead of watching TV while you're on your Android pad and iPhone at the same time. You know, it's getting to the point where it's slightly ludicrous, but it's certainly
yes, and having drinks and pizza with three friends.
Yeah. Quite.
None of whom are paying any attention to each other. They're all too immersed in the latest text message that came in on their smartphones.
Yeah,
I'm being a little facetious there, but
well, you and me both can go for that. You know, it's to say, every time I go out, you know, I'm well. An old friend of mine, she's no mention, she was about 17, once said to me. I remember this. I don't know why she said it to me at the time. She says, "You're going to turn into one of those old men who wanders around in the street talking to yourself." And I go out nowadays, and I like walking around because I start thinking. I don't actually talk to myself; I think to myself. But the funny thing is, everybody but me is talking to themselves, or at least it looks like that.
Yeah.
Of course, they've got things in their ear, and they're happily chatting away, and they don't realize, you know, they're talking in public, in private conversations, and they're just oblivious to the fact that anybody else is around. It is rather funny, to say the least. Nobody in that time predicted a future where everybody would be talking to themselves for a reason, for an actual reason, you know. But it's
it is disconcerting to be walking down the aisle in the grocery store, and here comes somebody who's talking up a storm, and of course, in the era of Bluetooth devices, you know, they can be doing so with an earpiece, and you can't see the earpiece anymore. So, you know, it's kind of like, it really is like they're walking down the aisle talking to themselves, and, you know, you get closer and you realize that, okay, well, they're carrying on a conversation via Bluetooth, but still, it does bring to mind the days when the only time you ever encountered someone walking down the street or wherever talking to themselves was somebody who definitely was, you know, a couple of cards shy of a full deck.
Yeah. Somebody in the chat room, Stan Voyager, actually in the chat room, has actually posted a link to Daily Mail, actually. But there was an article from Princeton, a study this week, that estimated Facebook will lose 80% of its users in, I think it was 2 years. Of course, studies are studies. But
I would like to point out that was an unrefereed publication.
Oh,
there were several notes made about the
quality of the quote research. Yes. And as a former researcher myself, I'm very sensitive to things like that, and I don't think I wouldn't call it research.
Yeah, me too. There's things that always jump off the page at me, and some of the breathless coverage of this bit or that bit of research, and I start immediately raising questions.
Oh, I'm like that when I'm introducing the show, because I got all these selected sort of Twitter things that I've clicked on in the week, and study this, study that, and exercise this and exercise that. It's all very interesting, but you kind of wonder, how much of a sideline it is and how much it's authenticated by double checks and stuff like that. So, but I mean, even Facebook have admitted they've lost all their students and kids. They're now addressing an older age audience, the mummies and daddies.
Yeah, well, and that's why the kids have gone elsewhere, because the kids were didn't want their moms and dads watching what they were doing on Facebook.
Yeah, how long before Granddad gets just far too many adverts for him to use it anymore? I certainly I'm not that quick. People think I am, but I'm not going to trawl through that in my field. Actually, Dan Voyager also earlier in the chat, it's too far back to scroll. I mean, he mentioned, is it a Malcolm somebody who's the CFO at the moment who might take over, but he was also saying a good candidate would be Pete Linden, which I'm actually, that's quite interesting, because Pete Linden is one of the few, he's there to come in world and post notices from the lab to, the press group and the residents groups. But he is certainly one of the Lindens that seems to have a grasp on InWorld attitudes and things to a certain extent.
Well, I've also seen, I couldn't tell you whose blog post it was or where it was, but someone suggesting from an internal promotion perspective, besides the CFO, the current head of engineering, or the current head of product development. I don't have his name on the tip of my tongue because names get away from me, but their comment was that he's been with the lab for at least a couple of years, and he also has history with having been a CTO. So he's been top tier management.
Good point. And product development is what it's all about, really.
Yeah,
I mean, he would have a grasp on everything that Rod has initiated.
So I guess my question would be, is if Rod's departure was truly self-driven, if it was his choice completely to move on, and the board is happy with the basic directions that he set, it would make more sense to promote from the inside.
Yeah.
If they are dissatisfied with the directions that have developed over the last 3 years, then bringing in a new CEO from outside the company would make more sense. So I think we're in a wait and see position, because none of us have eyes and ears inside the process.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, a lot of people are saying get Velvik on today, But I was, I mean, Fat Charles probably, but even if there had been, it's the wrong time, because it's I'm actually curious whether, because he's obviously going to start in this new company to further develop his ideas. What those are, I don't know, whether they'll be purely game-based things or whether he'll maintain an interest in the greater idea of virtual worlds. But I'm quite curious as whether he'll be based back over here in England again. Maybe I'll be able to get together with him and maybe I'll actually be able to get a reflections interview or something out of him as far as Second Life is concerned. Wait to be seen. But certainly at the current time, he's probably inundated. Same today. I was. I had two contacts from Cloud Party. I was like, grab one of them for the show, and their little red thing has come up on Skype indicating they're definitely not available at the moment. Wonder why, Okay, so let's we probably exhausted the two items on our current news thing here. I'm not even going to try to read these out, actually. I have the page open from Fab3 at WordPress.com from Friday. It's the usual Friday hunt report. And it's got a list of grid-wide hunts and sim and store hunts still currently going on. including many that are finishing about today or tomorrow. So if you're interested in hunting, you might want to check out the list there. Far too long for me to read, but there again, lots and lots of hunts. A good time of the year for hunts all around, it seems. Avalon Town have a grand reopening celebration coming up. I just look for links to Avalon Town. All these links, by the way, are in my Malburns_writer Twitter feed. So twitter.com Malburns_writer. Just links to events and stuff. There are far too many for me to cover them all. Linden Lab CEO departs. Oh, that's a surprise. What's that about? Yes, we know. Quite a lot of LEA blog posts in the week too, especially covering these temporary month-long installations by, we've got Cole Kussman and Pet Love, Pet Shop, of course, has got hers, and there's really quite a few things there. You preempted me with the, I've forgotten what it's called already, Tara, the, is it Fuchsia Night Fires thing? Is it the same one? We mentioned the dimensional sort of thing.
No, this isn't Fuchsia. Infinity Space.
Okay.
Betty Tureau.
Betty
that opened yesterday, and it's Southern Charm. It's not.
That's not LEA, right? Yeah, there was a post this morning. Kill the Kraken! Kill the Kraken! Kill the Kraken! That's LEA 28. I did slightly investigate that. It feels a bit more like a role-play thing than an art thing, but never mind. It was a cursory glance. There's a grand opening of, I think this may be a club. In fact, I'll fire up the link, actually. Prometheus Fire. Oh, it's Kara's Corner that had Kill the Kraken. KaraSecondLife.com. And SL Inquirer, this was. Grand opening of Prometheus Fire on February the 1st. Yes, so that is still ahead. 6 p.m. SLT. And brilliantly, it doesn't really... Right. I can't tell you a great deal about that. They don't... it's entertainment, fashion, and all sorts of anything, including raffles. But just one more gig to promote there. Right, I'm looking down the list, and really there's too many to actually hone in on. Okay. So, Thinkerer, your blog. You do post a lot of events there too, a lot of which I just sort of miss elsewhere. So I'm really grateful for your blog, actually. Anything coming up in the next week or two that you think we should have our eyes on in InWorld, either here or in Kitely?
Well, actually, I've mentioned the ones that I'm particularly up on, that which is the Avatar Rep Theater presentation this Friday is the one that I'm mainly mentioned. Other than, I don't have anything else coming up right away that I have a date on and so forth.
Right. Well, we can always check your blog. Now, for the purposes of... I wonder if I can get my keyboard working. I haven't got any light here. It's virtualoutworlding.com. Is that right?
Yes, that's right. But if you just type in virtual outworlding, you'll find it. Or if you type in my name, you'll probably find it. Selby Evans.
Right. Well, I'm just typing into the channel chat here for the benefit of our viewers. There it is. It's a link. So anybody watching in the live chat room at the moment can just click on that link, preferably when the show's over, so you don't leave our page, and you can go to Selby's blog. As we said earlier, probably at least a post a day about various things, very interesting, creative things you might want to check out. Right. So, any additional notes from you, Tara? Stuff happening in world, or you want to round up?
No, I think I covered everything I had.
Right.
Obviously, we're on the the home stretch. Oh, wait a minute. You know what? I do have another item. Just a minute. I started to move it over to the other machine where I keep my notes, and I then promptly didn't finish moving it. Yeah, these things happen. Yeah, okay. This evening at 7 p.m., this is an LEA event, something called Movable, a 5-act extravaganza celebrating the artistry of particles by Fire with music by Mongo Flex, and that's in LEA 13 at 7 p.m. Second Lifetime today. There's in the hunt world, there's kind of an interesting one. M&M Creations is an InWorld store that has long focused on full permission sculpts and mesh more recently. Items for builders, creators to use to build off of. So their full perm items are certainly pricier than going into a store and buying somebody who's then done the textures or incorporated the bit into into something else. But they're doing a winter quest, and it's not a hunt for gifts. It's a hunt for it's a contest. There are 20 questions. Every question you gain a different amount of points, and the points are then depending upon. This is a contest. The person with the highest number of points gets a 20,000 Linden voucher for the store. Then there's a second prize of 8,000 Lindens and a third of 4,000. And then there's two best contestants end up with the same amount of points. They will share the prize. Anyway, so it sounds pretty fun, and that starts in about 4 days. So if you're a creator and you love the stuff M&M Creations does, and the thought of a $20,000 voucher has you drooling, get over there, get the information if you haven't seen it already.
All right.
That's it. That is it for me.
Well, I keep thinking, am I drooling over M&Ms? But that is a whole different ball game. I'm not allowed those sweetie things. Yeah. So, okay. Well, any closing remarks? So we're actually doing really well on time here because the InWorld premiere, it has been delayed a couple of weeks, but the InWorld premiere of Black and Mirror 2 episode 4 is literally starting right now in Second Life, and I've been forbidden for showing it until 2 o'clock. But since it is now 2 o'clock, I'm free to show it. So behind the scenes, I've just been pushing it up our playlist, so you'll be able to see it right after this show, which will be we're going to end very shortly. Any final remarks from anybody? I think great to have had you here.
Thank you, Geo. Thank you for inviting me. I've certainly enjoyed it.
Right. We will have to get you back on a future show. I now have your Sky pad, so I can hijack you accordingly. But it's been great to have you here. And as I said at the beginning, I'm so surprised we've never had you on before. I don't know why. It just feels like somewhere that you realise we've been broadcasting every year without a break for 7 years. A week without a break. Which is quite remarkable. Okay, well, thank you again, Thinkerer, or Selby. Thank you, of course, Tara. And we'll be back sort of same time, same place next week, unless Linden Labs vanishes with its CEO, in which case we'll be on OS Grid, but very unlikely. Hope you've enjoyed the show. Do let's get in touch if you've got any comments or anybody you think should be joining us. Things like that. Feedback is welcome. And talking of Google Plus, do go to if you go to Google Plus and look up communities, we actually have a community there called Metaverse Week in Review, where replays of the show and stuff appear, and some other people post their videos into it too. So it's a pretty open, informal group. Good method of contact there. And of course, follow me on twitter.com/malburns or twitter.com/malburns_writer, depending on whether you want InWorld or Outworld, as it were. Had to, so we're there. Right. Okay. Well, we will see you next week. And coming up is our, there's about 4 hours of machinima highlights coming up, all the best of the week. And we actually start off, as always, with our selected machinima. And the first one of those you'll be seeing is Black Mirror Season 2, Episode 4. Long awaited. And don't worry, the Pussycat is no longer in there as a cameo. So we'll see you soon. And we're off. Yay.
Great.